Christmas Eve. Snow falling soft outside the window. My 6-year-old son, Ethan, clutching a handmade gift for his great-grandmother. We drove 2 hours through the cold hearts full of hope. Grandma Serafina had invited us herself. But when I knocked on that door, my own mother looked at me like a stranger and said words that still echo in my mind. What happened next changed everything. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from tonight. Hit that like button and subscribe. Now let me tell you what my grandmother did that left everyone speechless. The snow had been falling steadily since noon, covering the roads in a thin white blanket that made the drive slower than usual. I gripped the steering wheel carefully, navigating the familiar route to Grandma Serafina's house. In the back seat, Ethan pressed his nose against the window, watching the snowflakes dance in the headlights. "Daddy, are we almost there?" he asked for the 10th time. "Almost, buddy. Maybe 15 more minutes." He clutched the small box wrapped in red paper, decorated with crayon drawings of snowmen and Christmas trees. Inside was a portrait he had spent 2 weeks creating. A picture of great-grandma Serafina drawn with the careful attention only a 6-year-old could give. Her silver hair, her kind smile, even the pearl necklace she always wore. He had been so proud when he finished it. I glanced at him through the rearview mirror and felt my chest tighten with love. This kid had been through so much in his short life. The divorce 2 years ago had confused him, though his mother Amanda and I had tried our best to make it as painless as possible. Shared custody meant he spent half his time with me, half with her. He adapted as children do, but I knew he craved stability. Family gatherings like this one meant the world to him. Grandma Serafina was 82 years old, but her mind was sharp as ever. She had been a history teacher for 40 years before retiring, and she approached family matters with the same fairness she had brought to her classroom. She never played favorites. She never let anyone get away with nonsense, and she adored Ethan. When I called her last week to ask if Ethan and I could come for Christmas Eve dinner, she had sounded genuinely happy. "Of course, Marcus. This is your home too. I will set 2 extra places at the table." I had not mentioned it to my mother. Our relationship had grown strained since the divorce. Diane, my mother, had taken it personally when Amanda and I split up. She kept saying I had embarrassed the family, that I should have tried harder, that I had given Kevin, my older brother, yet another reason to look down on me. Kevin was the golden child. A successful lawyer with a beautiful wife named Brittany and a perfect daughter named Madison. He could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. Me. I was the software engineer who worked from home, who had a failed marriage, who did not fit the mold my mother had envisioned. It did not matter that I made good money or that I was a devoted father. In her eyes, I would always be second best. But tonight was not about my mother. It was about Grandma Serafina and giving Ethan a magical Christmas Eve surrounded by family. The car turned onto Maple Street, and I saw the old Victorian house at the end of the block. Lights glowed warmly from every window. Wreaths hung on the door. The sight of it brought back a flood of childhood memories. Building snowmen in that front yard, drinking hot cocoa by the fireplace, listening to Grandma Serafina read Christmas stories in her gentle voice. "We are here, buddy," I announced. Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt before I even stopped the car. "Can I ring the doorbell, please?" "Of course you can." We stepped out into the cold night air. The temperature had dropped significantly, and I could see my breath forming small clouds as I exhaled. Ethan grabbed my hand with his free one, the other arm wrapped protectively around his gift. We walked up the snow-covered path to the front porch. Through the frosted window I could see figures moving inside. I heard laughter, the clinking of glasses, the muffled sound of Christmas music. The smell of roasted turkey drifted through the door, rich and inviting. Ethan reached up and pressed the doorbell. We waited. I heard footsteps approaching. The door opened, but only a crack, not wide enough to invite us in. My mother's face appeared in the gap, her expression immediately shifting when she saw us. The warmth drained from her eyes, replaced by something cold and unwelcoming. "Marcus," she said my name like it was an inconvenience. "Hi, Mom. Merry Christmas." She did not return the greeting. Her gaze moved down to Ethan, who was smiling up at her with innocent excitement. "Hi, Grandma. I made a present for Great-Grandma Serafina." My mother did not smile. She looked back at me, her jaw tight. "Go home. There is no room left." The words hit me like a physical blow. I blinked, certain I had misheard. "What? You heard me? We are full. You should have called ahead." "But I did call. I spoke to Grandma Serafina last week. She invited us." My mother shook her head dismissively. "Mom is old. She forgets things. Kevin and his family are here. There is literally no space for you." I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening. Through the crack in the door, I could see the dining room table. There were at least 4 empty chairs. "Mom, I can see there is plenty of room." Her eyes narrowed. I said, "No, Marcus. Do not make this difficult. Just go." Ethan tugged at my coat sleeve. His voice was small, confused. "Daddy, why can we not go inside? Is Great-Grandma not here?" The question broke something inside me. I looked down at my son, at his hopeful eyes, beginning to fill with uncertainty at the carefully wrapped gift he had worked so hard on. How could I explain this to him? How could I tell him that his own grandmother did not want us there? From inside the house, I heard Kevin's booming laugh. Then Brittany's voice complimenting someone on the appetizers. The sounds of a family enjoying Christmas Eve together. A family that apparently did not include us. I swallowed hard, pushing down the humiliation that burned in my throat. "Come on, buddy. Looks like the house is pretty crowded tonight. We will come back another time to see Great-Grandma." "But I made her a present," Ethan whispered, his lower lip trembling. "I know. We will make sure she gets it, I promise." My mother stood in the doorway watching us. She offered no apology, no explanation, no hint of remorse. She simply waited for us to leave. I took Ethan's hand and turned away. As we walked back down the snow-covered path, I heard the door close behind us. Not a gentle click, but a definitive slam. The sound of it echoed in the quiet night. Ethan looked back over his shoulder at the closed door. "Daddy, did I do something wrong?" "No, buddy. You did not do anything wrong. This is not your fault." "Then why does Grandma not want to see us?" I did not have an answer. I just squeezed his hand tighter and guided him back to the car. The snow was falling harder now, the flakes larger and wetter than before. By the time we reached the car, our coats were dusted white. I opened the back door and helped Ethan into his seat. He was still clutching the gift, his small fingers gripping it like a lifeline. I buckled him in, then stood there for a moment, my hand on the car door, staring back at the house. The lights looked different now. Not warm and inviting, but mocking. Exclusive. A celebration we were not allowed to join. I sat in the driver's seat but did not start the engine. The cold crept into the car, slowly frost beginning to form at the edges of the windshield. I stared straight ahead, my mind racing. In the back seat, Ethan was silent. I glanced at him through the rearview mirror. He sat perfectly still, the gift box resting on his lap. His eyes were red and glassy, but he was not crying. He was too confused to cry. Too young to fully understand the cruelty he had just witnessed, but old enough to feel its sting. "Daddy." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Yeah, buddy." "Why does Grandma not like us?" I closed my eyes, fighting against the anger and sadness swirling inside me. How do you explain family dysfunction to a 6-year-old? How do you tell him that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest? It is complicated, Ethan. Grandma is she is having a hard time right now. It is not about us. Even as I said the words, I knew they were only partially true. It was absolutely about us. About me specifically. My mother had made me feel like an outsider my entire adult life, especially after the divorce. I had become the family embarrassment, the cautionary tale she whispered about to relatives. Poor Marcus. Such a shame about his marriage. Kevin would never let something like that happen. I thought about all the family events I had been conveniently forgotten for. The Thanksgiving where my invitation got lost in the mail. The 4th of July barbecue where no one told me the time had changed. The birthday parties for my niece Madison, where I only found out afterward through social media posts. But this was different. This was Christmas Eve, and my own mother had looked me in the eye and told me there was no room for us in a house with at least 4 empty chairs. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting maybe a text from a friend or a notification from work. Instead, the screen displayed a name that made my heart skip: Grandma Serafina. I answered immediately. "Hello? Marcus?" Her voice was shaky, but not from frailty, from anger. I had heard that tone before, usually directed at misbehaving students decades ago. "Where are you right now?" "I am in the car, outside the house. Mom said there was no room for us, so we were about to leave." Silence on the other end. 3 seconds. 4. 5. When she spoke again, her voice had transformed. Gone was the shakiness. In its place was steel. "Come back right now. I mean it, Marcus. You turn that car around and you come back to this house." "Grandma, I do not want to cause any trouble. If Mom does not want us here, this is not your mother's house. This is my house. I built it with your grandfather 53 years ago. I decide who is welcome here, and I invited you and my great-grandson. Now you come back. Do you understand me?" The authority in her voice left no room for argument. This was the woman who had commanded classrooms full of teenagers. The woman who had raised 3 children during difficult times. The woman who at 82 still refused to let anyone push her around. "Yes, ma'am. We are coming back." "Good. I will be waiting." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there for a moment, phone still pressed to my ear, processing what had just happened. Then I put the car in reverse and backed out of the parking spot. "Ethan, we are going back." He looked up, confusion and hope mixing on his face. "We are, but Grandma said, Great-Grandma Serafina wants to see us, and it is her house, so we are going back." Will the mean lady let us in this time? The mean lady. My own mother reduced to that description in my son's eyes. It should have made me angry. Instead, it just made me sad. "Great-Grandma is going to take care of everything. I promise." I drove back around the block, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I did not know what would happen when we walked back through that door. Would my mother argue with Grandma Serafina? Would Kevin get involved? Would the whole evening descend into chaos? But another part of me, a part that had been silent for too long, wanted answers. Wanted acknowledgement. Wanted my mother to look me in the eye and explain why she had turned away her own grandson on Christmas Eve. The house came into view again. This time I noticed something different. A figure standing at the upstairs window. Grandma Serafina, her silver hair unmistakable even in the dim light. She was watching, waiting. I pulled into the same spot we had left 10 minutes ago. The snow had already begun to cover our earlier footprints, erasing all evidence we had ever been there. "Ready, buddy?" I asked Ethan. He nodded, clutching his gift box against his chest. "Ready." We walked up the path again, our footsteps crunching in the fresh snow. But this time, before we reached the porch, the front door swung wide open. Grandma Serafina stood in the doorway. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, but in that moment she seemed to fill the entire frame. Her silver hair was pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore a deep burgundy dress with her signature pearl necklace. Her eyes, usually soft and kind, burned with an intensity I had rarely seen. She did not look at me first. Her gaze went straight to Ethan. "My sweet boy," she said, her voice suddenly gentle. She bent down and opened her arms. Ethan ran to her, burying his face against her shoulder. She held him tight, one wrinkled hand stroking his hair. "I am so sorry you had to wait in the cold," she whispered. "That should never have happened. Never." She pulled back and looked at the gift in his hands. "Is that for me?" He nodded eagerly, his earlier sadness temporarily forgotten. "I made it myself. It is a picture of you." He opened the box carefully and pulled out the drawing. Grandma Serafina took it in her hands, studying it with genuine admiration. I watched her eyes grow misty as she traced the crayon lines with her finger. "This is the most beautiful gift I have ever received," she said, and I knew she meant it. "I am going to hang this somewhere very special." She stood up, one hand still on Ethan's shoulder, and finally looked at me. "Come inside, Marcus. Both of you." She turned and walked into the house, leading Ethan by the hand. I followed, stepping across the threshold into the warmth. The foyer opened into the living room, where the rest of the family was gathered. Kevin sat in the large armchair near the fireplace, a glass of wine in his hand. Brittany perched on the arm of his chair, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her designer dress probably costing more than my monthly grocery budget. Madison played with a pile of expensive-looking toys near the Christmas tree. My father Harold sat on the couch staring at his plate of appetizers, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. He had always been passive, letting my mother run the household and make all the decisions. I could not remember the last time he had stood up for anything or anyone. And there was my mother. Diane stood near the kitchen doorway, her face flushed red. Whether from embarrassment, anger, or the wine she was drinking, I could not tell. She watched Grandma Serafina lead us into the room with an expression that mixed defiance with discomfort. No one greeted us. No one said Merry Christmas. No one even acknowledged that we had entered the room. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the soft Christmas music playing from the speakers. Grandma Serafina guided Ethan and me to the dining table and pulled out 2 chairs directly beside her own seat at the head. "Sit here," she said, "right next to me." We sat. Ethan looked around the room with wide eyes, picking up on the tension even if he did not fully understand it. Grandma Serafina walked to the center of the room. She picked up a crystal glass from the side table and tapped it gently with her fingernail. The delicate ringing sound cut through the silence. "I need everyone's attention," she announced. Kevin shifted in his seat. Brittany examined her manicure. My mother crossed her arms. My father continued staring at his plate. But everyone was listening. "Tonight," Grandma Serafina began, her voice calm but sharp, "I witnessed something that broke my heart." She paused, letting the words settle. "I was upstairs resting before dinner. I heard the doorbell ring. I looked out my window and saw Marcus and Ethan standing on the porch. My grandson and my great-grandson, here to celebrate Christmas with their family." Another pause. Her eyes moved to my mother. And then I watched Diane open the door. Not all the way, just a crack. And I watched her turn them away. On Christmas Eve. In the cold. In the snow. Kevin started to say something, but Grandma Serafina held up her hand. "I am not finished." He closed his mouth. I watched Marcus and Ethan walk back to their car. I watched my great-grandson, 6 years old, carrying a gift he had made for me with his own hands. I watched them disappear into the darkness because my own daughter told them there was no room. She turned to look at the dining table, at the 4 empty chairs. No room, in a house with more than enough space for everyone. My mother finally spoke. "Mom, you do not understand the situation. Marcus did not call ahead. We were not expecting him. Everything was already arranged for—" "Do not lie to me, Diane." The words were quiet but devastating. My mother's mouth snapped shut. "I told Marcus to come. I invited him myself a week ago. And I reminded you this morning. I said Marcus and Ethan are coming for dinner. Make sure there is enough food. Do you remember what you said?" My mother did not answer. "You said fine. That was all. Just fine. And then you stood at that door and told my grandson to go home." Grandma Serafina reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out her phone. I had not even known she knew how to use it, but apparently I had underestimated her. "I also know about this," she said, holding up the screen. "A message you sent to your sister Ruth 3 weeks ago. Would you like me to read it out loud?" My mother's face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "Ruth showed it to me. She was concerned. She thought I should know what you were saying about my grandson behind his back. Grandma Serafina looked at the screen. Marcus is the embarrassment of this family. His divorce was shameful enough, but now he wants to bring that poor child around like nothing happened. I wish he would just stay away. Kevin is the only son I can be proud of. The room was absolutely silent. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I knew my mother favored Kevin. I knew she was disappointed in me. But seeing the words, hearing them read aloud, made it somehow worse. Kevin cleared his throat. Grandma, this is really not the time or place for— This is exactly the time and place, she interrupted. This is my house, my family, and I will not sit here and watch one of my grandchildren be treated like garbage while the other one is put on a pedestal. She turned to Kevin. And you? I watched through the window. When Marcus and Ethan left, you laughed. You said, and I quote, more turkey for us then. Kevin had the decency to look uncomfortable. You have become exactly what I feared you would become, Grandma Serafina continued. Arrogant, heartless, so convinced of your own superiority that you cannot even feel compassion for your own brother. Brittany stood up, her voice high and indignant. This is ridiculous. You cannot talk to us like this. Kevin is a successful attorney. He has accomplished more than— More than what? Grandma Serafina cut her off. More than Marcus. Let me tell you something about accomplishment, young lady. Marcus works hard. He pays his bills. He is raising a wonderful son on his own. And most importantly, he has something that seems to be missing from this side of the room. Kindness. She walked back to the center of the room, her small frame commanding attention. Here is what is going to happen. Diane, you are going to apologize to Marcus and Ethan. Right now. Sincerely. My mother stared at her. Mom, I really do not think— That was not a request. The two women locked eyes. For a moment I thought my mother might refuse, might storm out, might make things even worse. But there was something in Grandma Serafina's gaze that brooked no argument. The authority of a matriarch who had held this family together for over 5 decades. My mother walked slowly toward us. She stopped in front of the table, her eyes fixed somewhere above my head. I am sorry, she said flatly. Look at them when you say it, Grandma Serafina instructed, and mean it. My mother took a breath. Her eyes finally met mine, and for just a moment I saw something crack in her expression, something human beneath the coldness. Marcus, I am sorry. I should not have turned you away. She looked at Ethan, who was watching her with wary eyes. I am sorry, sweetheart. What I did was wrong. Ethan did not respond. He just moved a little closer to me. Now, Kevin, Grandma Serafina said. My brother stood up reluctantly. He walked over, hands in his pockets, clearly uncomfortable. Sorry, man, he mumbled. It was not personal. It was the weakest apology I had ever heard. But it was something. More than I had gotten in years. Grandma Serafina nodded slowly. This is a start. We have a long way to go, but at least we are not pretending anymore. Madison, Kevin's daughter, who had been watching everything with wide eyes, suddenly spoke up. Mommy, why is everyone so mad? Did Uncle Marcus do something bad? The innocent question hung in the air. Brittany looked at her daughter, then at the rest of us, and for once she seemed to have no words. Kevin knelt down next to his daughter. No, sweetheart. Uncle Marcus did not do anything bad. The grown-ups we need to be nicer to each other. It was the most genuine thing he had said all night. The rest of the evening was not perfect. The tension did not magically disappear. There were awkward silences at the dinner table, forced conversations, glances that carried years of unspoken resentment. But there were also moments of genuine connection. My father Harold, who had been silent through everything, came up to me after dinner. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, I should have spoken up sooner. I am proud of you, son. It was probably the most he had said to me in a year. It was not much, but it was something. Ethan's drawing was placed in a frame and hung above the fireplace right in the center. Grandma Serafina made sure everyone saw it there. Madison asked Ethan to play with her, and the two cousins spent the rest of the evening building a puzzle together, oblivious to the adult drama swirling around them. Later, when the dessert had been served and the coffee was brewing, Grandma Serafina pulled me aside. We stepped out onto the back porch, our breath forming clouds in the cold night air. "I should have done this sooner," she said, looking out at the snow-covered yard. "I saw how they treated you. I heard the comments, the exclusions. But I kept hoping they would change on their own. That was my mistake. You should not have to fight my battles for me, Grandma." She turned to face me, her eyes fierce. "That is where you are wrong. Family means fighting for each other. It means standing up even when it is uncomfortable, especially when it is uncomfortable." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a watch, gold with a worn leather band. I recognized it immediately. "This belonged to your grandfather," she said. "He wore it every day for 40 years. He would have wanted you to have it." "Grandma, I cannot." "You can, and you will." She pressed it into my hand. "Your grandfather was a good man, fair, kind. He never played favorites with his children or grandchildren. He would have been so proud of you, Marcus. The man you have become, the father you are." I felt tears prick at my eyes, but I blinked them back. "Thank you. You do not need to thank me. You just need to remember something." She took my hands in hers, her grip surprisingly strong. "You are worthy of love. You are worthy of respect. Do not ever let anyone, not your mother, not your brother, not anyone make you feel less than that." We stood there in the cold for a few more minutes watching the snow fall. No more words were needed. When we went back inside, Ethan was asleep on the couch, the puzzle half finished beside him. Madison had fallen asleep too, her head resting on a pillow near her cousin. My mother was in the kitchen washing dishes. She did not look up when I entered. "Mom," I said quietly. She paused, her hands still in the soapy water. "I am not looking for a perfect relationship. I know we have our differences. But Ethan deserves to know his grandmother, his family. Can we at least try?" She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded, still not looking at me. "I will try," she said. "That is all I can promise." It was not reconciliation. It was not forgiveness. But it was a door left slightly open. I gathered up my sleeping son, said my goodbyes, and headed out to the car. The drive home was quiet, peaceful. Ethan slept the whole way, clutching the candy cane Grandma Serafina had slipped into his pocket. As I drove through the silent streets, I thought about everything that had happened. The rejection at the door, the anger, the confrontation, the tentative steps toward healing. That Christmas taught me something important. Family is not just about blood. It is about who shows up for you, who fights for you, who loves you not despite your imperfections, but because of them. My grandmother, at 82 years old, had shown more courage in one evening than most people show in a lifetime. She had stood up for what was right, even when it meant challenging her own daughter. I thought about Ethan, about the kind of man I wanted him to become. I wanted him to know his worth, to stand up for himself and others, to choose kindness over cruelty every single time. When I got home, I carried Ethan inside and tucked him into bed. I placed the gold watch on my nightstand and looked at it for a long time. Some wounds take years to heal. Some relationships never fully recover. But that night in that house, something shifted. A truth was spoken that needed to be heard. A line was drawn that needed to exist. And I learned that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones brave enough to fight for you, even when it means standing against their own. I would like to hear from you. Have you ever had a family member stand up for you when no one else would? What happened? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories like this one. Thank you for being here tonight. May your holidays be filled with people who love you exactly as you are, and may you always have the courage to fight for the ones who need you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.